Bridgestone is on a journey toward a more sustainable society. Together with our suppliers and partners, we are determined to pioneer new innovations that deliver value to our customers and the world, improving the way people move, live, work, and play. The global demand for rubber is rising, and we must rise to meet that challenge responsibly. As a global leader providing sustainable mobility and advanced solutions, Bridgestone is working toward 100% sustainable materials at every point of our supply chain by 2050 and beyond. This journey will not be easy, but it will be acted on with the utmost consideration for how we procure our materials, the natural resources we use, and the impact our productivity has on the communities of the people we buy and source from. Our founder, Shojiro Ishibashi, believed in serving society with superior quality. This belief is not only about the products we make, but the legacy we leave behind. It is our way to serve, shaping our continued global compliance, instilling in us a commitment to environmental stewardship, motivating our respect for human rights and fair labor, and emboldening our commitment to increase transparency and engagement with partners. Inspired by our founder's vision, our way to serve will allow us to see long-term environmental, social, and economic value for all our stakeholders at every touch point of our interaction with the world around us. Through our way to serve and its layers of impact, enhancing mobility, supporting people and communities, and advancing environmental stewardship, we will set an example for our industry, lead in sustainable mobility, and provide lasting value to how we conduct our lives today, tomorrow, and into the future. Bridgestone and its partners are on a journey.
Ok, bon, on va jouer un petit peu. Kita akan bermain dulu. Ini yang Kak Bertrand, tu as déjà appris. Kamu sudah pernah belajar nih.
Oke, nomor 8.
Hai, watashi wa igirisu desu.
Igirisu? Jin.
Iya, jin desu.
Diulang dulu.
Akhirannya kan diganti jadi apa, Mas? Akhirannya R jadi Oke, bagus. Biang.
Terus Vorstellungnya dia cara memperkenalkannya tuh pakai ich bin, mein Name, atau pakai apa nih di sini?
Ich heiße.
Ya, oke, good.
For almost 70 years, the Institute for Economic and Social Research, or generally known as LPEM FEB UI, has been at the forefront of Indonesia's advancement in both economy and social development through groundbreaking research, well-rounded publication, and training aimed to improve policies planning and realization.
Jadi LPM ini sendiri sudah merupakan lembaga penelitian dengan sejarah yang sangat panjang. Dia sudah berusia 66 tahun. LPM itu adalah bagian dari Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia.
First established by Professor Dr. Sumitro Joyo Hadikusumo in 1952, LPEM FEB UI has completed more than 1,200 researches and consultations for both government bodies, state-owned corporation, and the private sectors.
Jadi dari dahulu keterlibatan kita di dalam policy itu hampir tidak pernah putus ya, dari replita ke replita ke replita. Ada suatu kesadaran di pemerintahan, terutama di Bappenas sebetulnya, itu perlu pelatihan terhadap pegawai Pemda. Karena lambat atau cepat akan ada otonomi daerah.
Pada waktu itu kebetulan Indonesia sedang mengalami suatu proses transisi yang sangat besar, yaitu dari negara yang sangat centralized menjadi negara yang decentralized. Jadi topik desentralisasi dan otonomi daerah menjadi topik yang sangat dicari. Kami bersyukur karena pada waktu itu LPM tampil sebagai salah satu lembaga penelitian terkemuka di bidang tersebut, ya, sehingga selalu menjadi acuan, menjadi bahan perbandingan apabila ada pihak luar negeri misalkan, pihak universitas lain di luar negeri ingin melakukan penelitian atau pendalaman mengenai desentralisasi fiskal dan pembangunan daerah di Indonesia.
Through publishing journals, LPM FEB UI has been providing various insights in navigating governmental bodies and businesses through the ups and downs of global and national economy situation.
Maklum sekarang bisnis juga tidak bisa tanpa data, informasi, tanpa penggunaan model-model ekonomi terakhir ya. Apalagi kalau Anda sekarang maju ke arah big data, ke arah artificial intelligence ya. Mau tidak mau data analis akan sangat diperlukan.
LPM FEB UI also provides a range of products and services, which include but not limited to surveys, data analytics, impact analysis, reviews of central and regional government policies or regulations, and training courses.
Untuk pelatihan di LPM ada sifatnya yang pelatihan reguler yang misalnya ditawarkan setiap tahun. Topiknya juga sudah cukup umum. Salah satunya adalah tentang regulatory impact assessment, penganggaran dan perencanaan, keuangan daerah, pengelolaan aset, dan juga sifat tematik lainnya yang sifatnya tailor-made, tergantung juga dari pola dan perkembangan kebutuhan dari klien maupun perkembangan keilmuannya itu sendiri.
Jadi harapan saya bagi LPM adalah untuk memperluas kerjasama penelitian yang selama ini sudah ada, baik dengan industri, dengan pihak di luar negeri, dan juga dengan pemerintah. Karena model pendidikan sekarang adalah model triple helix, yaitu pemerintah, akademisi, dan dunia usaha.
Jangan lupa teknologi berubah sangat pesat sekarang. Dan juga bahwa the way the government doing itu sekarang berubah banyak. LPM itu adalah sebagai sumbernya begawan ekonomi, dia harusnya bisa menjadi sumber yang tidak berhenti dari sisi ilmu pengetahuan, pemahaman, bahkan termasuk wisdom, public policy, making process, dan stay relevant dengan tantangan hari ini dan ke depan tanpa kehilangan historinya, yang legacy masa lalu.
Through our core values, truth, uprightness, and justice, LPM FEB UI will continue to be at the forefront in providing economy and social development insights for Indonesia.
Apa tuh? Keripik gandum. Enak. Keripik gandum. Enak kan? Tanpa MSG lagi. Wah.
Baru Fit Chips, keripik gandum asli dengan tekstur bergelombang yang enak, gurih, dan renyah.
Ya.
Fit Chips, keripik gandum enak tanpa MSG.
Indonesia, negeri yang menyimpan segala keindahan.
Macet!
My Trip, My Adventure kini hadir setiap minggu jam 8 pagi di Trans TV. Sambut kehadiran Deddy Corbuzier.
Enggak.
Iya, mau.
Suka.
Saya Deddy Corbuzier, yoga.
Deddy's Corner kini hadir setiap Sabtu jam 7 malam di Trans TV.
Hari ini kami melaksanakan patroli.
Monitor, jagoan Rambon, jagoan motor silakan pelan-pelan, tetap tengok kiri kanan.
Setelah sampai di lokasi, saya membagi tim untuk menutup ruang gerak pelaku.
Anak-anak nongkrong juga jelas, kalau diperiksa udah bubar aja.
Untuk para pengemudi, untuk tidak menggunakan bahu jalan, karena bahu jalan diperuntukkan untuk keadaan darurat. Terima kasih.
Meluncur ke TKP, siap, 86.
Bisa nikmatin berbagai informasi dari Liputan 6, liputan6.com, dan aplikasi Liputan 6 secara bersamaan. Semuanya ada di wajah baru aplikasi Liputan 6. Kamu bisa jadi orang yang paling cepat dapat informasi terbaru karena ada fitur latest. Nikmati cara baru baca berita di fitur Visual Stories. Bukan cuma tulisannya yang menarik, tapi banyak gambar kece yang bisa kamu lihat. Tampilan kece, update berita cepat. Download sekarang ya.
Saat ini obat ampuh untuk melawan virus corona belum ada.
Saya ingin agar protokol kesehatan, perubahan perilaku di masyarakat menjadi perhatian kita. Kita fokus kampanye pakai masker.
Semua wajib pakai masker di media group. Disiplin memakai masker tidak hanya untuk melindungi diri dan sesama, tapi juga untuk menjaga Indonesia kita.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 18th Economix, supported by Bridgestone Tire Indonesia. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin today's seminar, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Muhammad Irza Shahyandrah, Management Student Batch 2020.
And my name is Kianka Azura, Management Student Batch 2020. And we will guide you through today's seminar as your Master of Ceremony.
Before we begin today's seminar, we would like to greet a couple of important characters. The first being Dr. Beta Yulianita Gitahari, SAMA, the Dean of Faculty of Economics on Business, Universitas Indonesia.
Professor Emil Salim, Indonesian economist and Professor Emeritus of Universitas Indonesia.
Third, Abdul Ghani Kusuma as the Chairman of Kanopi FEBUI.
Kevin Bagasatria, Chief Executive Officer of the 18th Economix.
And Bambang Susantono as the Vice President for Knowledge Management Sustainable Development of the ADB.
Economix is one of the biggest international events in the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia that is annually held by Kanopi, the student body of Universitas Indonesia undergraduate economics students.
Economix regularly serves as the platform for discussion of crucial global economic issues. The three main events of Economix are seminar, MUN conference, and competition, with participants from different countries all around the globe.
In its 18th year, Economix returns with the grand theme of
The Planet in Climate Crisis, a Repercussion of Ignorance.
Before we begin today's event, please abide by the following rules.
First, all participants are expected to attend the entire 18th Economix International Seminar event until the seminar ended.
Second, all participants are strictly forbidden to make a hassle or make a potential problematic situation once joined the platform.
Third, all participants cannot spam the chat column and activate the camera or mic during the seminar.
Fourth, all questions asked must be relevant to the seminar topic and submitted through the Q&A column according to the format, name_institution_question.
Next, participants can only obtain certificate and vouchers if participants have registered, fill out the attendance forms, and follow all of the seminar sessions until the end.
Next, please do take a screenshot of the proof that you have joined the seminar for 2 days. Before we move on to the next agenda, we would like to thank our sponsors and media partners. Without their contribution, our event would not be as successful. In particular, we would like to thank our sponsors.
First, Bridgestone Tire Indonesia,
Fiesta Nugget, rasakan enaknya setiap hari.
Vale Indonesia,
Lingo Talk,
Bank Syariah Indonesia,
Fitbar,
Ajaib,
Ilunia FEBUI,
Widji,
Studio Rahel,
Databox,
Treats by Walking Drums,
Hungry,
King Snack Pack,
BNI Sekuritas,
and Epson.
And our official research partner, Economics Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia.
And Lembaga Penyelidikan Ekonomi dan Masyarakat FEBUI.
Last but not least, we'd also like to thank our official media partner, Trans7, and our other media partners,
Trans TV,
CNN,
Net TV,
Metro TV,
Medcom.id,
Detik.com,
Tempo,
Kumparan,
O Channel,
Merdeka.com,
Liputan 6,
Stabilitas,
Kata Data,
Good News from Indonesia,
Media Indonesia,
Infobank,
Greeners,
Info Seminar,
Bumi Buddies,
Greeneration Foundation,
Teens Go Green,
Forest is Our Friend,
Netral News,
Kontan,
Saya Pilih Bumi,
Cerita Iklim,
Sustainable Indonesia,
Event Banget,
BO Economica,
and last but not least, Earth Hero ID. In addition, we also have a tree donation going on, which we invite you to contribute to our donation by accessing lindungihutan.com/economixfebui or by scanning the QR code that is shown throughout our seminar.
We will now open this event by singing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Do you know that we have a tagline?
Really? What is it?
So everyone, when I say 18th Economix, then you have to say Espirit. Let's try this. 18th Economix,
Espirit. Let's try this again one more time. 18th Economix, Espirit.
That's the spirit.
Now, we would like to present a traditional Merak dance performance from PPI Groningen.
This dance, well preserved throughout centuries, originates from West Java, one of the provinces in Indonesia.
The dancers are Sania Aurelia, Vandria Chandracaya, indigenous students that are currently pursuing their education in the Netherlands.
Wow, it's very nice to see young Indonesian students embracing our culture overseas. Please give a round of applause for the Merak traditional dance performers from PPI Groningen.
Welcome to the 18th Economix, the planet in climate crisis, a repercussion of ignorance.
Such an impressive performance, wasn't it, Kanes?
Yes, indeed, Irza. Once again, please give a round of applause for PPA Groningen dancers. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's move on to the next agenda. We will hear opening remarks from important stakeholders of the 18th Economix.
First up is Kevin Bagasatria as Chief Executive Officer of the 18th Economix. Please welcome Kevin Bagasatria.
Good morning, honorable speakers, moderator, faculty members, and fellow attendees. My name is Kevin Bagas Kesatria, serving as the Chief Executive Officer of the 18th Economix Global Economic Challenges, and I proudly welcome you to the 18th Economix International Seminar. It is with our utmost pride and joy that despite this pandemic, we are still able to present this international seminar for the 18th time. On this very special occasion, we are going to listen, discuss, and gain valuable understandings about something that is very close to us, our homes, our lives, and our planet Earth, that is. We are honored to present to you the grand theme of the 18th Economix, the planet in climate crisis, a repercussion of ignorance. Understanding the importance of this issue for our livelihood, the 18th Economix has innovated to bring you 2 days of insightful experience with 12 notable speakers and 2 experienced moderators. On the first day, we are going to discuss about the emergence of the climate crisis, which will bring you a general overview on the urgency of the climate crisis and how increases in global awareness will help in resolving the issue. On the second day, we are going to hear more on how the climate crisis affects many sectors of our lives, with the theme of multidimensional perspectives on climate breakdown, exploring the aftermath. Thus, I would like to introduce to you each of our speakers and moderators that will deliver precious insights for us in the next 2 days. Dr. Honoris Causa, Dr. Andes Muhammad Yusuf Kalla, the 10th and the 12th Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia. Professor Emil Salim, Emeritus Professor of Economics at Universitas Indonesia. Mr. Bambang Susantono, Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development at Asian Development Bank. Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacaribu, Head of Badan Kebijakan Fiskal. Mr. Ignatius Jonan, former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources. Mr. Archandra Tahar, President Komisioner at PT Perusahaan Gas Negara Tbk. Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, Country Director for Indonesia at Greenpeace. Mr. Ruanda Agung Sugadirman, Director General of Climate Change Control at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Mr. Venkata Chalam Anbumoji, Senior Energy Economist at ERIA. Mr. Sudhir Sharma, Task Manager at United Nations Environment Program. Dr. Moira Mulyono, C4 Senior Associate. Mr. Iman Gunadi, Head of Research Center at Bank Indonesia Institute. Mr. Muhammad Eri Wijaya, Senior Analyst at Climate Policy Initiative. And last but not least, Ms. Tiza Mafira, Associate Director of Climate Policy Initiative. On behalf of the committee, I would like to say thank you to all the parties involved in this seminar. The Department of Economics, the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia, Bridgestone Tire Indonesia, all sponsors, and all media partners. Finally, I wish you all a pleasant and insightful 2 days experience towards the betterment of the planet. There is no planet B. Thank you, and Espirit.
Thank you, Kevin Bagasatria, for the insightful welcoming speech.
Next up is from the chairman of Kanopi FEB-UI, Abdul Ghani Kusuma. Please welcome Abdul Ghani Kusuma.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. With all the respect, I humbly welcome you to the international seminar of the 18th Economics, especially to our honorable guest, Ms. Beta Yulianita, as the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, Professor Emil Salim, as the Emeritus Professor of Economics in Universitas Indonesia, Mr. Bambang Susantono, as the Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development of the Asian Development Bank, Ms. Moira Mulyono, as the C4 Senior Associate, Mr. Iman Gunadi, as the Head of Research Center at Bank Indonesia Institute, also the moderator, Mr. Muhammad Eri Wijaya, as the Senior Analyst at Climate Policy Initiative. On behalf of Economics Committee and Kanopi FEB-UI organization, I would like to say many thanks to all the speakers and moderators who have been sparing our precious time for come to our seminar. We are so deeply honored. Also, many thanks to each one of you which attending the seminar at this morning. This year's grand theme is focused on the importance of climate crisis, as we believe that we cannot achieve the sustainable development without addressing the better environmental aspects. We do hope that this seminar will give many insights and could be such a wake-up call for all of us regarding the climate crisis. Last but not least, welcome and thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Abdul Ghani Kusuma, for the inspiring speech.
Bridgestone is on a journey toward a more sustainable society. Together with our suppliers and partners, we are determined to pioneer new innovations that deliver value to our customers and the world, improving the way people move, live, work, and play. The global demand for rubber is rising, and we must rise to meet that challenge responsibly. As a global leader providing sustainable mobility and advanced solutions, Bridgestone is working toward 100% sustainable materials at every point of our supply chain by 2050 and beyond. This journey will not be easy, but it will be acted on with the utmost consideration for how we procure our materials, the natural resources we use, and the impact our productivity has on the communities of the people we buy and source from. Our founder, Shojiro Ishibashi, believed in serving society with superior quality. This belief is not only about the products we make, but the legacy we leave behind. It is our way to serve, shaping our continued global compliance, instilling in us a commitment to environmental stewardship, motivating our respect for human rights and fair labor, and emboldening our commitment to increase transparency and engagement with partners. Inspired by our founder's vision, our way to serve will allow us to see long-term environmental, social, and economic value for all our stakeholders at every touch point of our interaction with the world around us. Through our way to serve and its layers of impact, enhancing mobility, supporting people and communities, and advancing environmental stewardship, we will set an example for our industry, lead in sustainable mobility, and provide lasting value to how we conduct our lives today, tomorrow, and into the future. Bridgestone and its partners are on a journey.
Ok, bon, on va jouer un petit peu. Kita akan bermain dulu. Ini yang Kak Bertrand, tu as déjà appris. Kamu sudah pernah belajar nih.
Oke, nomor 8.
Hai, watashi wa igirisu desu.
Igirisu? Jin.
Iya, jin desu.
Diulang dulu.
Akhirannya kan diganti jadi apa, Mas? Akhirannya R jadi oke, bagus. Yang.
Terus Vorstellungnya dia cara memperkenalkannya tuh pakai ich bin, mein Name, atau pakai apa nih di sini?
Ich heiße.
Ya, oke, good.
Siapa yang makan nasi ayam gue?
Segi satu.
Udah belum?
Kalau beda-beda, antum pesen nah. Ayam!
Kenapa nggak pesen di Hangry Up aja sih? Di Hangry Up itu ada macam-macam, semua bisa dipesan sekaligus. Lewat Hangry Up, beda seleranya, bisa sama nikmatinnya.
Halo? Apa? Kamu di depan? Yaudah, aku keluar sekarang ya. Ayo jalan.
Tumben kamu siap-siapnya cepet.
Aku udah siap dari tadi malam. Tetap terlihat modis dimanapun dan kapanpun dengan Tiama Wiji. To hear the welcoming speech from Dr. Beta Yulianita Gitahari, SE.ME, as the Dean of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Indonesia. Please welcome Mrs. Beta.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excuse me, the sound is back. Can you fix that? Okay. It still fits back. Suaranya masih menggema. Bisa diperbaiki?
You do it. You do it. Clear. Yes, your voice is clear.
Ma'am, your voice is already clear.
Let me check. Still echoing.
Ma'am, we think it's from your device.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning to the distinguished speaker and moderator, Professor Emil Salim, the former Minister of Population and Environment, Mr. Bambang Susantono, Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development of the ADB, Mr. Eri Wijaya, Senior Analyst at Climate Policy Initiative, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, Country Director for Indonesia at Greenpeace, Mr. Ignatius Jonan, former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Dr. Moira Mungkiono, Sci4 Senior Associate, Mr. Iman Gunadi, PhD, Head of Research Partner at Bank Indonesia. Good morning to all speakers, moderator, and all participants. On behalf of Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, I would like to thank you for taking your valuable time to attend to our seminar. As Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, it is an honor to welcome all of you in today's forum. First of all, let us thank you to God for this grace that we can all gather in this event virtually. I want to extend our gratitude to all sponsors for your generous sponsorship and make this event more attractive. Economix FEB UI is the biggest student held international economic seminar competition, and its 18-year presence is indeed not a short journey. Economics has significantly improved throughout the years and always find a new way to set a genuine new benchmark for other events to follow. Comprising of three main events: international seminars, student competition, and Economics MUN, Economics continues to broaden its vision as the leading student-held international economic seminar to discuss, share, and find the best alternative solution to current issues. The uniqueness of Economics, despite its bold name of Economics, it opens for diverse participants with different backgrounds and disciplines. This year, Economics brings very happening issues, that is climate change. As we all can see, climate change has become a reality much faster than all scenarios predicted. We've recorded hot days and decades ever. We have faced extreme weather patterns, flood, heat waves, droughts, and greater intensity and frequency like never been before. It is also predicted that some critical large regions will become uninhabitable in several years because there will be either flooded or get hardly any rainwater at all. Climate change is not just an environmental issue, but it encompasses and threatens many human aspects such as health, agriculture, food security, and even the global economy. Although the share of agriculture, for instance, is much smaller relative to all sectors in the economy, than it used to be, the effect of climate change on this sector is still evident in PTV. As agricultural yields sensitively depend on climate conditions, crop failure will affect food security and food processes. High food prices can bring a simultaneous effect on other sectors. So it is our time to do something and act thoughtfully to prevent further global warming. Otherwise, it will be irreversible. Every single element of humankind and activity is required to focus on the effort to tackle this crisis. This seminar will bring all of those issues and will be actively discussed by prominent speakers. I hope that this event will provide you insightful overviews of the urgency of the climate change and the climate crisis and how to resolve it. Even though with this pandemic we cannot meet face to face, I believe that this event discussion will run dynamically and engage everyone in the forum. I hope all participants will gain new insight and more knowledge. Be the agent of changes to encourage others to be more aware with climate issues and take part to tackle this climate crisis. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ms. Beta Yulinita Gitahari, for the remarkable welcoming speech. We are deeply sorry for the technical issues that we've had. Last but not least, please welcome Professor Emil Salim, Professor Emeritus of Economics at the University of Indonesia, known for his service as Republic of Indonesia's first State Minister of Environment. He obtained his master's and doctorate degrees from the University of California, Berkeley.
He is the recipient of the WWF's The Leader for the Living Planet Award for his contribution to sustainable development. Currently, he is engaged in teaching activities and environmental conservation advocacy through the Kehati Foundation that he and his colleagues established. Before we listen to his insightful speech, we would like to express our condolences for the passing of Professor Emil's wife, the late Miss Rosmini Rosa Salim, this past Saturday. For that, we would like to take a moment of silence in honor of her beautiful journey.
Thank you, everyone. With that, Professor Emil Salim has kindly graced us with a few words. Please welcome Professor Emil Salim.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome to Indonesia. We are now gathering together to discuss the emergence of climate crisis. The phenomena of climate crisis is clear. The CO2 emission has increased, temperature increased, the ice is melting in Greenland and in Antarctica, and gradually we'll see storms are coming up as sea level rise. Basically, therefore, as the IPC, the Governmental Panel on Climate Change, has mentioned, there is reason for concern on the cooperation, increased cooperative efforts along the world to cope with the climate change. The basic reason of climate change is the warming of the climate due to the carbon dioxide emission, CO2 emission. And CO2 emission is a reflection of the way we develop the economy. Transportation creates CO2 pollution, industry, energy, and so on. There's a need for change. But the change, every economist knows that the change is necessary. Every environmentalist knows that it is necessary. But why is change so difficult? Because it is basically a political issue. When Donald Trump becomes the president, one of the major actions is to withdraw United States from the climate change agreement. As a response, China also took then a rather attitude of also not very much cooperative on the field of climate change. But when Donald Trump is replaced by Biden, and Biden returns back United States to the Climate Change Convention, China also changed, and he employed back again the heroes of the Paris conference. I remember Mr. Xi Jinping, the chairman of the Chinese delegation in Paris, that make a deal with the Obama government that makes the Paris meeting successful. So the key of the global climate is a political commitment by the powerful nation, United States and China. The Biden strategy, as well as the president of China, President Xi Jinping, are now fully committed to cope with the climate change. China is taking the ecological situation as a new way of renaissance of Chinese development. So, the political climate globally is now very favorable in favor of coping with climate change. The impact must be also on Indonesia. Indonesia up to now has not shown yet a full commitment to climate change mitigation. The law on mining, energy, and coal that is enhancing the use of coal and energy and oil and so on proves that Indonesia is not yet on the right way of coping with climate change. But when the global political situation changes, I feel that Indonesia must also change. It is in this context that this conference is so important, that it meets the need to push our political leaders, our economic leaders, and all of Indonesia to cope with the world in totality, to cope with the challenges of climate change together. And the hope, therefore, is that Indonesia, that is facing a sea level rise, will then be prevented from being affected by floods, storms, and so on. So the time is ripe that the government takes the political decision to cope with climate change in the process of Indonesian economic development together with the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Emil Salim, for the exceptional opening remarks. Thank you for all of the remarkable opening speeches.
We will now perform our symbolical opening ceremony.
With this, the 18th Economix officially begins.
Before we move on, we would like to once again thank our official research partner, Lembaga Penyelidikan Ekonomi dan Masyarakat FEBUI.
Now, we will proceed to the keynote session of the 18th Economic Seminar. To open the session, you will hear keynote speech on the topic of the emergence of climate crisis. The first keynote speech will be delivered by Mr. Bambang Susantono.
Insinyur Bambang Susantono, MCP, MSCE, PhD, is the Vice President Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development Asian Development Bank. Dr. Susantono was the Acting Minister and Vice Minister of Transportation of Indonesia and Deputy Minister for Infrastructure and Regional Development at the Office of Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs.
He holds a PhD in Infrastructure Planning and has master's degrees in Transportation Engineering and city and regional planning from the University of California, Berkeley. He earned a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the Bandung Institute of Technology.
please give a warm welcome to Mr. Bambang Susantono.
Thank you very much for a very generous introductions. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, students, members of University of Indonesia, Faculty of Economic and Business, participants of the 18th Economic Seminar, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from Manila, the Philippines. Allow me first to express our deep and sincere condolences to esteemed Professor Emil Salim, my senior, and his family. Doa kami yang terbaik, Pak, untuk almarhum Ibu dan keluarga yang ditinggalkan. Amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. On behalf of the ADB, Asian Development Bank, I would like to thank Canopy FEB UI for the opportunity to speak to all the vibrant young minds from university on a topic that will dominate much of what we need to think about and do something about now and in the future, the climate crisis. Indeed, we are fighting a climate crisis. And it is you, our future leaders in business, government, and academia, that must grab the baton and continue to confront the impact of climate change. I believe it is well within your power to meet the challenge head-on. In Asia and the Pacific, we hold significant power in both causing and addressing climate change. Our huge demand for resources, as we conduct our daily human activities, contributes to the region's rising carbon dioxide emissions, one of the main causes of our planet's rising temperature. Vulnerability to disasters caused by natural hazards exacerbates the way we experience climate change. Most of us have seen it in our communities, well beyond what the statistics show, as we see some people hungrier, less healthy, and less safe. From 1990 to 2019, disasters have affected 5.2 billion people in Asia and the Pacific. 1 million people were killed, and there was almost $1.5 trillion in direct physical losses. Our economies, communities, and for some, our homes were affected. In Indonesia alone, disaster led to more than 5,000 deaths and $2 billion of damages in 2018. Disasters cost about $18 billion a year in low and middle income countries globally, just in damage to power generation and transport infrastructure. They also trigger wider disruptions for households and firms, costing at least $390 billion a year. If no climate development is taken, then by 2050, over 143 million people could be forced to move within their own countries to escape the worsening impact of climate change. Between 3 and 122 million more people will fall into poverty because of climate change. The global economy will be 3% smaller due to the lack of climate resilience. The world's 136 largest coastal cities are at high risk of flooding. Average estimates show the global flood losses today are about $6 billion a year. Climate change could result in global crop yield losses as large as 5% in 2030 and rise to as much as 30% by 2080. To tackle this climate crisis, we must recognize and understand its complexity. We must move well beyond short-sighted or static solutions. As extreme weather events increase, they are bound to intersect with other hazards and emergencies. The risks and impacts are dynamic and long-term, and thus, so should be our solutions. Through the Paris Agreement in 2015, more than 160 countries committed to substantially reduce global greenhouse gas emissions to limit the global temperature increase this century, and also strengthen those commitments over the time. Despite investment in clean energy, the current commitments, known as nationally determined contributions or NDCs, still fall far short of those targets. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed what can be a worst-case scenario of disasters, one that resulted from short-sightedness and short-term thinking. The urgency to address climate change has only heightened since the pandemic struck. In fact, it is more important than ever. Like COVID-19, climate change poses a dire threat to human lives and highlights the need for early preparedness and better crisis response systems. The pandemic demonstrated just how much energy, economic movement, and environmental impact are intertwined. According to the International Energy Agency, global energy demand contracted by 6% in 2020, the largest drop in more than 70 years. This reflects the catastrophic impact of the pandemic on travel, trade, and social and economic activity on the one hand, while underscoring the damage we are doing to our environment if we don't change anything. Even though the sharp and painful disruption in economic activity across the globe led to reductions in energy demand and global carbon emissions, they are not even enough to help us reach the targets set by the Paris Agreement. Pre-COVID-19 global commitments were already insufficient to meet the Paris Agreement's goal, and current commitments may lead to a temperature rise of 3.2 degrees Celsius this century. Over half of the world's carbon dioxide emissions now come from our regions. But we also need to remind ourselves that even before the pandemic struck, Asia and the Pacific was already the region hardest hit by disasters, and the climate change exacerbates these effects. The signs of climate change remain and are alarming. Rising sea level, melting ice, and extreme weather events. Most troubling is that it is the poor and vulnerable that often bear the brunt of these increasingly devastating impacts. The pandemic has once more underscored the importance of supporting vulnerable populations. So how can they be best supported through climate actions that also supports the COVID-19 recovery? Even in these difficult times, there is always hope for the future. From different countries, we have seen new and enhanced Paris Agreement medium-term plans and the NDCs, National Determined Contribution. There are new long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategies and mid-century net zero greenhouse gas emission targets. Countries are creating adaptation plans and strategies and looking to increase climate finance. So far, at least 75 leaders have announced new commitments or indicated ongoing work toward new targets. Among the major announcements have been the People's Republic of China, their NDC-related commitment to lower its CO2 emissions per unit of GDP by over 65% by 2030 from 2005 levels. The European Union announced its NDC-related plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% from 1990 levels by 2030. And the United Kingdom announced its NDC-related target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to at least 68% below 1990 levels by 2030. Japan and the Republic of Korea have both committed to net zero emissions by 2050. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we must all realize that protecting the environment and addressing climate change are fully compatible with a growing economy, even when recovering from the disruption caused by the pandemic. We must remember that every situation offers new opportunities. And in this case, the key is in reopening our economies in new ways and rebuilding smartly. Now faced with the damaging effect of the pandemic, as we recover, we must also deliver strong economic and social benefits alongside the benefit to climate and resilience. At this crucial juncture, we can address the huge challenges confronting us if we work together to support a low-carbon transition for a sustainable recovery. We must return our attentions to building low-carbon economies and society, while at the same time ensuring social inclusion and enhancing climate and disaster resilience. As governments shape the recovery and rebuild their economies, investment must be made to create jobs, increase productivity, and address climate challenges. We must come up with innovative but practical ways to secure a robust recovery without greenhouse gas emissions returning to pre-pandemic level. For some possible option on how to approach this, ADB published in August 2020 a policy guidance note entitled COVID-19 Recovery, a Pathway to a Low-Carbon and Resilient Future, which you can view and download from our website. While ADB provides immediate relief from the pandemic's devastating impacts on health and economies, it is also crucial to design smart interventions for recovery. The decisions we make now will define the creation of post-pandemic systems, institutions, and assets, helping to set the directions for development well into the future. More clean and green investments will be an important part of post-pandemic stimulus, ensuring that economies emerge not only stronger and more resilient to climate and health shocks, but also with new jobs in greener economies. We must offer better employment opportunities than business as usual or business as before. This point with practical recommendation are discussed in our technical guidance entitled Accelerating Climate and Disaster Resilience and Low Carbon Development through the COVID-19 Recovery, published in October 2020. More recently, in January 2021, ADB co-published with the Global Center for Adaptations a technical study called a System-Wide Approach for Infrastructure Resilience. This study calls for a systemic transformation toward climate-resilient infrastructure planning upstream, better use of analytical tools to assess climate risks, prioritizations of resources for building resilience, and nature-based solution NBS for adaptations. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as an example of a scheme that supports green infrastructure investment, there is ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility, or ACGF. It is an innovative financing facility designed to scale up green infrastructure projects in Southeast Asia. This facility is today supporting ADB developing member countries, create green jobs for economic recovery from the pandemic, prioritize NDCs as part of that recovery, and avoid the lock-in of carbon-intensive infrastructure. It also strengthens resilience. Here in Indonesia, we are helping take advantage of the world's largest geothermal potential. ADB Geothermal Power Generation Project will support the constructions and commissioning of 2 geothermal plants at Dieng in Central Java and Patuha in West Java, providing environmentally friendly electricity and reducing CO2 emissions by more than 700,000 tons a year. We work to approve this amid the COVID-19 pandemic to help ensure that Indonesia economic recovery will be green, sustainable, and resilient. The Disaster Resilience Improvement Program for Indonesia is also an integral part of ADB support to the government's focus on enhancing environmental sustainability, disaster and climate resilience, and human capital development. It supports reforms in disaster risk management and health services while advancing gender equality. It will also help manage the fiscal risk arising from future disasters triggered by natural hazard and pandemic. ADB is also doing its part in developing strategic actions on clean energy, sustainable transport, sustainable urban development, and climate-smart agriculture, all ensuring alignment with the Paris Agreement. ADB is committed to cumulatively deliver $80 billion in climate finance between 2019 and 2030. And we will ensure that at least 75% of our projects will address climate change mitigations and adaptations by 2030. Despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, we still allocated $5.3 billion to climate finance last year. Some $4.6 billion of that, or 86%, will contribute to mitigating climate change, and $751 million, or 14%, to climate adaptations. We are scaling up climate and disaster resilience through cross-sectoral investment beyond infrastructure in social, environmental, and financial sector. Through projects that recognize the independence of critical infrastructure, we are building system-wide resilience. We are also promoting investments that bring transformational change through resilience. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, after learning and listening to what others have done, you must be wondering, and now, what can I do? You must take actions, you must do the impossible, because giving up is never an option. I borrow that advice from someone closer to your age, my fellow students, but whose wisdom is as enduring as any authority or advocate. The young environmental activist Greta Thunberg was just 15 when she first protested outside the Swedish parliament, vowing to continue until her government met the carbon emission target of the Paris Agreement in 2015. Now she is 18, Ms. Thunberg remains unrelenting in finding more ways to spread the word on climate action, and so should you. In closing, I look forward to your participation and involvement in this virtual event. Do not feel constrained to connect through this platform. Embrace how it broadens access to this opportunity to learn from each other and ensure your voices are heard. As future leaders, your generation is critical to building a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future in which both human and nature not just survive, but also thrive. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Bambang Susantono, for the insightful speech. Now, we kindly invite Mr. Bambang Susantono to turn on your camera to receive our token of appreciation.
We also kindly invite Kevin Bagas Satria as the Chief Executive Officer of the 18th Economix to give the token of appreciation.
Dear Mr. Bambang Susantono, before handing our token of appreciation to these present speakers, I would like to thank you for such a comprehensive, deep, and insightful speech. We are also happy that ADB is also very committed in dealing with this issue. Therefore, thank you very much, Mr. Bambang Susantono. Please receive our token of appreciation. Thank you.
Please give another round of applause for Mr. Bambang Susantono.
Thank you, Mr. Bambang Susantono, for the substantive speech.
Bridgestone is on a journey toward a more sustainable society. Together with our suppliers and partners, we are determined to pioneer new innovations that deliver value to our customers and the world, improving the way people move, live, work, and play. The global demand for rubber is rising, and we must rise to meet that challenge responsibly. As a global leader providing sustainable mobility and advanced solutions, Bridgestone is working toward 100% sustainable materials at every point of our supply chain by 2050 and beyond. This journey will not be easy, but it will be acted on with the utmost consideration for how we procure our materials, the natural resources we use, and the impact our productivity has on the communities of the people we buy and source from. Our founder, Shojiro Ishibashi, believed in serving society with superior quality. This belief is not only about the products we make, but the legacy we leave behind. It is our way to serve, shaping our continued global compliance, instilling in us a commitment to environmental stewardship, motivating our respect for human rights and fair labor, and emboldening our commitment to increase transparency and engagement with partners. Inspired by our founder's vision, our way to serve will allow us to see long-term environmental, social, and economic value for all our stakeholders at every touch point of our interaction with the world around us. Through our way to serve and its layers of impact, enhancing mobility, supporting people and communities, and advancing environmental stewardship, we will set an example for our industry, lead in sustainable mobility, and provide lasting value to how we conduct our lives today, tomorrow, and into the future. Bridgestone and its partners are on a journey.
Wow, baru Fitbar Tiramisu Delight. Dengan multigrain, paduan Australian Oats, Premium Cornflakes, dan Rice Crispy. Dibalut dengan ekstrak biji kopi asli. Dalam saus tiramisu, hasilkan kenikmatan tiramisu penuh kelezatan. Fitbar Delicious Multigrain Bar.
of which, Bridgestone Tire Indonesia, as one of the biggest tire manufacturer in Indonesia, has been producing highest quality of tires. And not just that, this company always goes beyond. They don't stop giving impact to the society through their sustainable society journey.
Today, as this company is celebrating its 45th birthday in February, we would like to say happy 45th birthday. We wish you success and blessings in your journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we will enter the moderated session of the seminar titled The Emergence of Climate Crisis. This session will be moderated by Mr. Eri Wijaya.
Mr. Eri Wijaya is a senior analyst at Climate Policy Initiative. Previously, he was a climate policy consultant at World Resources Institute in the United States and a national expert on energy efficiency project financing United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Indonesia.
For a total of 7 years, he has been working in energy and environment sector in Indonesia as academician and consultant. Mr. Eri Wijaya received his bachelor's degree from Gajah Mada University with a major in engineering physics. He also got a PhD in energy economics at Kyoto University, Japan.
Please welcome Mr. Eri Wijaya.
Thank you, Kenka and Irza, for introducing me. It is my pleasure and privilege to moderate these sessions entitled The Emergence of Climate Crisis. Good morning, the honorable speakers and participants. Thank you for joining us in these sessions. Greenhouse gases occur naturally and are essential to survival of humans and millions of other living things. By keeping some of the sun warmth from reflecting back into space and making Earth livable. But after more than a century and a half of industrializations, deforestations, and large-scale agriculture, quantities of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has risen to record level not seen in 3 million years. As population economies and standard of living grow, so does the cumulative level of greenhouse gas emissions and resulting in global warming and climate change. As a result, changes in the global climate exacerbate climate hazard and amplify the risk of extreme weather disaster. Effects that scientists had predicted in the past would result from global climate change are now occurring: loss of sea ice, accelerated sea level rise, and longer, more intense heat wave and rising new diseases. Countries in the world reached a landmark agreement to combat climate change and to accelerate and intensify the actions and investment needed for a sustainable low-carbon future through Paris agreements. However, recent COVID-19 pandemic shifted countries' fiscal spending to aid the health and economy effect of COVID-19. This crisis will be the momentum to further transition the global economy to low carbon, while ensuring that all social and healthcare needs are addressed immediately, focusing stimulus on climate goals can support long-term growth and resilience. To support on that, today we will discuss the issues surrounding global warming, environmental disaster, and human activities that create the climate crisis and how to solve it from different perspectives. Let me introduce our honorable speaker today. I would like to welcome first Bapak Leonard Simajunta, Greenpeace Indonesia Country Director. Good morning, Pak Leonard. And second, Bapak Ignatius Jonan, former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources and former Minister of Transportation of Republic Indonesia, and currently as Independent Commissioner of PT Unilever Indonesia. Good morning, Pak Jonan. Third speaker, Ibu Dr. Moira Mulyono, Senior Associate at Center for International Forestry Research, or C4. Good morning, Bu Moira. And the fourth speaker, Bapak Iman Gunadi, PhD, Head of Research Center at Bank Indonesia Institute. Good morning, Pak Iman. Without further ado, I would like to invite Bapak Leonard Simanjunta, Greenpeace Indonesia Country Director, to share his knowledge. A brief introduction about him. Bapak Leonard is graduate of Bandung Institute of Technology as Bachelor of Petroleum Engineering and holds Master of Art in Governance and Development from University of Sussex. He has intensive working experience in environmental, governance, and humanitarian issues. Before joining Greenpeace Indonesia, he was Senior Governance Advisor for UK CCU-funded Low Carbon Development Program in Papua. Pak Leonard, please, you can start your presentations. Okay, sorry, Pak Leonard, there are some technical issues here. Can you just repeat to start again? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Apologies, Pak Leonard. It seems that your audio has not been entered to the system. So could you please turn on your audio?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, it's clear now. Thank you so much, Pak Leonard.
Sorry about that. Yeah, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. I feel very honored to be in this very important forum, and maybe without further ado, maybe I can ask my the committee, the panitia, to start my screen. Yeah, thank you. I will. This is a slightly long presentation, but I will focus on very key highlights briefly, and I will start with the impacts of climate crisis, because I believe that it should be the main perspective of everything we're doing at the moment and for the next decade or so, which is very crucial. Actually, the main message that I would like to give through this presentation, that climate crisis needs strong and decisive responses. It cannot be responded by half-hearted responses or too much compromise in terms of like policy making and how we do our politics and economies. Next, please. So for the next few slides, I would like to again remind all of us that we are already in this climate crisis. So it's melting. The ice is melting at unprecedented rate in Arctic and also in Antarctic. Next. We are losing. This is our only glacier in this part of the world. Carton's Pyramid Glacier is disappearing already. And in this decade, it will be gone. So next. We have seen over the past couple of months devastating impacts of climate crisis. South Kalimantan was flooded unprecedentedly. All of its kabupatens except 2 are inundated January to February. Next. and of course Jakarta, where most of us live. Already 2 consecutive years. 2 consecutive years. Last year, New Year Day, the highest extreme rainfall recorded in Jakarta's history fell into the capital and basically inundated Jakarta. And just last month, again, extreme rainfall fell into Jakarta, and we're seeing many parts of the cities inundated. Next. Pekalongan, a city in central Java, which is of course very important for the batik industry, and if we study seriously about the small and medium industries of Indonesia, Pekalongan holds a very important place in the history. It is inundated almost. But in 2018, already 31% of Pekalongan inundated. And from the latest study from ITB, there is a prediction that it will be totally inundated in 2035, only 14 years from now. Next. So I'll move now to what happens very recently in global climate politics, and it's all connected. Things that Pekalongan will face will be very much connected what Biden can do, and of course we have seen the first U.S. presidential election voted on climate. Of course, it's not only voted on climate; it's also a referendum for Trump's failure in responding to COVID. But it is truly the climate votes was very significant. And as Pa Emil said, and we all know, the U.S. has rejoined Paris Agreement, and Biden has brought very significant climate action plan, which aims for the U.S. to go net zero emission by 2050. And this is very important because the U.S. is the second largest emitter, and it will be a huge driving force for the whole world if Biden can actually deliver his climate action plan. But of course, we should remember that in 2022, only next year there will be midterm election, and with only slight majority in House of Representatives and a tie in Senate, this is still a very elusive political game that Biden has to face for the next few years. Next. Of course, the EU has shown much more leadership, particularly when President Trump decided for the US to cancel his participation in the Paris Agreement. And just last year, September, the EU has increased its commitment of carbon emission reduction from 40% to 55% by 2030, which is probably the most ambitious so far in the world. Also, this with the positions taken by the EU in international climate politics and international climate assistance, that this is very significant. Next. Of course, China is the first or the biggest emitter at the moment. But President Xi Jinping as well, in the absence of the US, has over the past 4 years has actually kind of taken part of the leadership in climate very recently, he announced in 2060, China will achieve zero net emission. It's a bit 10 years a bit late than the science should advise, but it's already quite good. But there is also hypocrisy. I have to say that in China, while they are very, I think, the leader in expansion of renewables, they're still also the leader in coal expansion at the same time. So, and China's Belt and Road Initiative is funding huge amount of numbers of coal power plant in Asia, Africa, and the Balkans. And that could prove a very actually detrimental to our global agenda to reduce to meet the 1.5 degrees target. And China, BRI, also still financing dirty coal power plants, low-tech power plants, coal power plants in Indonesia. Next. This is one thing that I would like to share. This only last week, the initial NDC synthesis report came in, and of course it's still early, but it's already quite disappointing because at the moment, the aggregate and average from parties that have submitted, and of course this is still without the US, and I believe it's probably still without China and the EU, that by 2030 the aggregate actually shows from this NDC's synthesis report, the initial one, that only close to 1% of carbon emission will be reduced in 2030. And if we are to be on the right track, so in paradox, if we are to be on the right track to meet the 1.5 degree goal by the end of the century, actually, by 2030, we need to reach a decline of CO2 by about 45% from the 2010 level. So that's pretty alarming. That's pretty disappointing at the moment. But of course, we can still improve that performance as the global community. We have not seen that the major emitters submitting it, but this should be taken into account seriously, that we are still quite far from reaching the 1.5 degrees target. Next. And this year conference of the party in Glasgow, November, will be pivotal. This is very pivotal, whether or not we can reach the target of the climate target, whether it's zero net emission by 2050, whether we can have the fundamental change already by 2030, and whether we can reach the 1.5 degrees target by the end of the century. Next. Now I'm going to our national context. At the moment, we pledge 29% carbon emission reduction by our own measures, or 41% with international assistance by 2030. I would argue that it has to be 41%, because there's a lot of international assistance already assisting this country. There's a lot of international program, and we need to be ambitious, because we are part of the top 10 global emitters, and we should be much more responsible. And one thing that I will talk a bit more in specific, that we cannot reach this 41% target if we don't decarbonize our economy. Next. We still have, but before decarbonizing our economy, we still have this current legacy problems. Forest and peatland fires still continuing from time to time, almost every year, although different scale from year to year. And we're still facing serious problem. I mean, we had one of the largest forest fires in 2015, and again, very huge forest fire in 2019. We need to be decisive in responding to these forest fires. Next. This is just a very briefly an image of our projection of deforestation if we do business as usual. I mean, we will lose most of our lowland forests. I mean, we have lose it in Java, we have in most Sumatra. I mean, in Kalimantan, it's going to be like Sumatra, I believe. And of course, we have seen encroachment even in the most intact forest, tropical rainforest that we have in Papua. Next. And this is just another illustration that the scale of and intensity of our deforestation is now shifting from west to east. So it's very important to actually basically to keep the forest in Papua intact. And it's also moving in terms of the cost, the main cost from logging and illegal logging. I think it's 70s and 80s, and in 90s and early 2000, of course, it is shifted to palm oil expansions. And now we're actually worried of big infrastructure development going to the east. Another one, which I next please. Another one which we in Greenpeace found actually quite worrying is that the position of the government to see biofuel as some kind of a panacea, ultimate medicine for our economy, as well as one of the main source of our renewable energy mainly in transport. From our latest study, actually with the LPAM FAUE, we have come to a quite worrying findings that if we go B50, so biofuel scenario of B50, actually there is going to be significant amount of forests, more forests need to be converted for the palm oil. It's it amounts to approximately 9 million hectares, because we are not doing good so far in our palm oil industry with technology, adapting new technology for replanting. So the industry still tends to expand and not to extensify, not to intensify. So it's quite worrying, because if we expand to more than 9 million hectares forest, that would mean that more carbon will be emitted to the atmosphere from the biofuel industry. Next. This is just an illustration of how dark a coal power plant can be, and of course it's one of the largest in Indonesia, Suralaya in Cilegon. Next. This is just from our report, very recent report that we did a scorecard on electricity sector in Southeast Asia, and focusing on energy transition. And unfortunately, in our scorecard, Indonesia's in meeting targets of renewable energy on rapid energy transition. It's not looking good. It's the grade is F. And next, it's as Pa Emil said, it's all political, and we found that actually there is the key takeaways from this report is coal elites are still blocking energy transition, and it can cause systemic failure. Actually, coal overcapacity and subsidies to coal power block solar and wind development, and poor pricing and frameworks on RE reflect institutional barriers to the significant expansion of renewable energy. If this goes and almost like business as usual, it is actually quite impossible for Indonesia's energy sector to get on to the pathway of 1.5 degrees by 2030s. Next, please. We've also seen, and there's quite a few studies already, that PLN is facing financial troubles with potential idles of coal power plants in the next few decades. And I will talk a bit later on potential trap of 27 gigawatts of coal power plants in the pipelines in the next few decades. Next. On transport sector, we need major transformation in our urban transport systems. We will have to transform very significantly from private vehicles, internal combustion engines based, to electricity-based mass rapid transport system. We will need, our big cities will need fundamental policy change in urban mobility to give much more space to non-motorist transport for bikes, for pedestrians. Also, major reorientations of transit-oriented development cities will be needed. Next. Overall, where should we head for? Where should we head for? We need to go, we need to adopt, and we need to implement green economic recovery, Green New Deal, which basically should adopt decarbonization of our economy. It will entail at least rapid energy sector transition from coal-dominated to renewable energy. It will need permanent moratorium of deforestation and palm oil expansion. It will need massive incentives for green investment, massive subsidies for renewable energy, and we will have to use this COVID-19 pandemic momentum to change the direction of our economy. We simply cannot go with this momentum with our economic package and stimulus only reflecting business as usual. Next. Unfortunately, this is the reality. This is from last year, that our current economic recovery package or stimulus is not green at all. We are on the left hand side. You could see. I mean, this is of course one of the watchdog in economies. From last year, and we are not doing very well. We're not doing well in our economic recovery package. Well, of course, the European Union New Deal is actually probably the greenest one, and should be our reference. Next. And of course, if we are talking about our national budget, actually, the low carbon development scenario actually formalized by the presidential regulation back in 2019 only reflected very small in our national budget. Actually, it's less than 2% actually of the national budget directly committed, directly allocated to the low carbon development scenario. Next. At the moment, and this is probably one thing that is quite important to be discussed, we have a draft bill of renewable energy law in the national legislative program. Unfortunately, at the moment, the renewable energy bill that is being proposed largely reflect business as usual approach. So it has to change. It should serve as a proper response to climate crisis. The renewable energy law that hopefully to be passed this year should establish strong platform for rapid energy transition. It should give strategic direction on how to deal with 27 gigawatt coal power plants in the pipeline that can trap Indonesia for decades to come. And it should not be hijacked. At the moment, the draft bill looks to be hijacked by non-renewable and dirty energy options like nuclear, coal gasification, coal liquidifications, and coal bed methane. All those are actually not new energy options. They are old energy options, but they are mentioned in the new bill, which is quite worrying. Next. We need to confirm for decarbonization of our economy, we need to confirm that deforestation and peatland conversion should end. The planned 3.25 million hectares of deforestation in our national development plan, in our view in Greenpeace, should be cancelled. Food estates that will convert more forests and peatlands need to be cancelled. There are other ways for our food sufficiencies rather than expanding to forest areas. We need permanent moratorium in new license in primary forests and peatlands to be consistently implemented, and moratorium of palm oil expansion need to be permanent. It's already 17 million hectares palm oil, and Indonesia already #1. We don't need another hectare of forest to be converted to palm oil. And of course, forest restoration need to be done in a massive way. Next, Greenpeace at the moment is focusing on Jakarta, Bali, and Tanah Papua. We will need to, if we can make this happen in these three main provinces or regions in Indonesia, we hope that we can replicate this to all over Indonesia. Jakarta should be transformed to energy efficient city, massively solarized, with dominated by electricity-based mass rapid transport, and friendly for non-motorist transport. Bali should combine tourism with green energy systems. And Tanah Papua, meaning Papua and West Papua province, need to establish we need to establish alternative and sustainable economic development there. We should not follow the Sumatra and Kalimantan route for Papua. It will be devastating. We will not and cannot contribute to achievement of global climate objectives if we lose our forests in Papua. Next. Of all this, we need people participation. We need massive solar rooftopping, middle to upper class, but also for working classes in big cities. So back to the renewable energy law or bill, the bill should direct that energy transition should take place in the most demanding energy in regions with most energy demands like Java, Sumatra, and Bali, not focusing only on remote parts of Indonesia. We need to have a game changer of renewable energy in those areas. We need the indigenous people involvement to defend our forests. We need the millennial and Gen Z to be involved, meaningfully participate. I mean, even the UN has realized it and make Blackpink as their official ambassador. We need to win in the digital front. This is a very digital freak society and country. We need to win with this climate agenda in digital front. We need mindset change in urban mobility. And last but not least, of course, we need massive green jobs as a reality. This is next, please. This is just an image from council housing develop actually this is in central London, and this equals to our Rusunami, our Tanah Abang Rumah Susun, and this needs to happen. This the solar rooftop needs to be cheap and affordable, subsidized, also for the working classes, not only for the middle upper classes. Next, we need the indigenous people's involvement, meaningful involvement to defend our forest. Next, we need to win in digital front. We need to reach out to millions of people, millions of Gen Z and millennial, and we need to work together with them to respond strongly and decisively to this climate crisis. Next, thank you. Thank you. Pak Eri, back to you.
Thank you, Pak Leonard, for the insightful sharing. Indeed, we do agree that strong leadership is really needed to respond to the recent climate crisis. To participants, I would like to remind you that you may write down your questions on the chat box, and then we will later read your question during Q&A sessions. Next, I would like to invite Pak Ignatius Jonan to share his knowledge. A brief introduction about him. Bapak Jonan received doctorandus in accountancy from University of Airlangga and Master of Art from Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. He also participated in senior managers in government program, Harvard Kennedy School of Governments and senior executive program from Columbia University. Pak Jonan is former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources and former Minister of Transportation government sector of PT Kras or Indonesian Railway Company and managed Citigroup Investment Bank. For his excellent work, he received many recognitions both private and public sectors such as or Mahabutama Star from Big Indonesia, Lifetime Achievement Award from Migas Government Indonesia, People from Infobank Magazines, and a Million Solar Rooftop National Movement Award Indonesia Renewable Energy Society. Pak Jonan is currently as independent commissioners of PT Unilever Indonesia, PT Industri Jamu and Farmasi Muncul. So Pak Jonan, time is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Pak Eri, and also the academics, the NGOs, leaders here. Also, my old friend Pak Bambang Susantono that has given the keynote speech representing the ADB. I also see Bank Indonesia officers here, Pak Iman Gunadi, Ibu Anita, and a good supporter of the Green Indonesia, Pak Leonard Simanjuntak. Selamat pagi, Pak. For this event, so since I have only 20 minutes, so I don't have so many slides or presentation that I can share. Maybe one day, if I have another 1 hour, 2 hours, so we can have a detailed discussion on the technicalities. So, but let me try to emphasize on what being concerned by Pak Leonard Simanjuntak and concerned by the ADB and many of us, especially for the younger generation, that I also agree with Pak Simanjuntak that my kids' generations are more environmental concern compared to my generation per se. So let me start with my slide, please. Okay, so this is the slide, so I will try to explain. Next, please. So let me quote what was said by Mr. Jerome Powell, the Fed Reserve Chairman, a few months ago. He said that we're not going back to the same economy, and I also believe his view. We are not going back to the same economy in terms of financial issues, in terms of global activities, in terms of environmental, in terms of many issues, especially also the national health system, the global health system, how to manage the pandemic, and so on and so forth. And it might also impact the environment, it might impact global warming, it might impact many things. So let me share with you on the next slide on what I perceive that we are changing, the world is changing in terms of the environmental concern, and also Indonesia is also changing towards that kind of direction. Next, please. Okay. This is, well, it's been, well, not so many people who are the supporter of the green environment, who are supporter to the sustainable development, is aware that the comparison of 10 largest companies in the world in 2008 versus 2018 is actually very shocking. If you look at the 2008 lists, out of the 10 companies, 10 largest companies in the world by market cap, so five of them were natural resources based, either PetroChina, either Exxon, Gazprom Russia, Royal Dutch Shell, that we also understand, and number 9, Sinopec. So 5 out of 10 largest companies in 2018 were natural resources based industry or businesses. But if we look at 2018, so only 10 years from 2008 to 2018, none of them existed. None of them existed anymore. We can only see Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Tencent. I think all of you understand this or have known it. Berkshire Hathaway, Alibaba, Johnson & Johnson, and JP Morgan, later becoming JP Morgan Chase. So it's a promising world that the 10 largest companies in the world in 2018 were not based on natural resources anymore, were not based on what we are concerning at the moment about the environment, about the sustainability, about the global warming, and about the carbon emission. So none of them. Maybe they are still under top 100, I believe, or top 50, including Exxon, but none of them existed in 2018. So this is a big movement. This is a big promise globally. So in terms of Indonesia, I think we are lag behind. So I think at least we are 10 years not improving significantly, but I believe we are moving toward that direction, even though it's a bit slow. So I would like to say that. But we are moving into that direction. Next, please. This is the top 20 companies ranked by current market cap as of December 1, 2020. If we look at that list, so we can find one natural resources-based industry that is number 1 in the list, which is Saudi Aramco, so built in 1933, then followed by Apple and so on and so forth. But if we expand into the top 20, none of them are natural resources-based, but only Saudi Aramco. So if you look at the list by now, or by last Friday, Apple already number 1. So Saudi Aramco went into number 2 and so on. But I believe so natural resources-based industry will not in the future will not come back to dominate the largest businesses. So the largest businesses from 2008 into this current moment and in the future, I believe will be based on the technology, will be based on the internet, will be based on the green environment and so on and so forth. So if we look at JP Morgan Chase, because they merged in the year 2000, so it has become number 16. 2 years ago, JP Morgan Chase was number 10. So this is the changes. And if we look at the pictures here, out of the top 20, at least 5 or 6 companies came from Asia. Okay. We see Samsung Electronics Company, we see Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, when I was still in the financial industry, when I was still in the banking system, I never imagined that a Taiwanese company can be on the top 20 lists globally. So, but now we look at Samsung, we look at Taiwan Semiconductor Company, number 12. So they are making chips, they're making microchips, they're making support technology for making the electric cars, for electric vehicles, and so on and so forth. So this is the reality. Look at Tesla, number 9. Tesla perhaps only produce like 5% of the what was produced by Volkswagen Group in the year 2020. So Volkswagen Group produced, I think, around 10 to 11 million cars last year. Tesla, I think, produced maybe 500, 600,000 cars globally. Toyota could produce maybe 9 million, 10 million cars. But the value of Tesla, so people said, well, it's a bit bubble. I don't know about that. But Tesla, in my opinion, is a big promise. It's a symbol of promise of the cleaner mobility from now on to the future. Not in the future, but from now on to the future. So this is the promise. So when I was in my regulatory job, so I advise, I push forward the businesses to have electric vehicles initiative, to have green power like solar power, wind power, and so on and so forth. This kind of initiative have to be pushed forward. So who is the best proposition people in this kind of changes? In my opinion, it's the public. It's the public. So there is no business can grow without the support of the public, without the support of the customers. If there is no customers, there is no businesses, right? So this is what I would like to send the message. The next slide will be, I have 5 short videos between 5 minutes to, well, between 1.5 minutes to 5 minutes. So I would like to start the first video to remind all of us on the Paris Agreement. So please start the video. Thank you.
The Paris Agreement is now 5 years old. A lot has happened in that time, like the US joining and then leaving, and now we're on track to join again. There's also a pandemic, which set a lot of countries behind. But what is the agreement? Short answer, it's an attempt to stop catastrophic climate change. The agreement was adopted on December 12, 2015 and entered into force on November 4, 2016. It was initially signed by 194 countries and is now ratified by 188 as of November 2020. But the core of the Paris Agreement is to limit the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that lead to global warming, so that the Earth's carbon sinks can keep pace and prevent the planet from overheating, all before the year 2100. That goal comes with the target of preventing the global average temperature from rising 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels this century. But why 2 degrees? Well, analysis have shown that if the global temperature rises beyond those 2 degrees, we could cross a tipping point and it may be impossible to recover from higher sea levels, disrupted weather patterns, and food and water insecurity issues. This could be the difference between life and death for thousands of people. At the current rate of global warming, the Earth could be 1.5 degrees warmer as soon as 2030. Now, the deal does not legally require any emission cuts from any of the countries involved. So it's basically all voluntary and there's no real punishment for missing country-specific goals. Each country involved submitted their own plans on cutting emissions. So far, India is the only country in the G20 that is on track to meet its initial promise back in 2015 and be compatible with a 2-degree warming goal. The top three emitters, China, the EU, and the US, are nowhere near. As part of the agreement, all countries involved are supposed to review their contribution plans every 5 years. But unfortunately for the US, there's been little to no contribution after President Trump's 2017 decision to leave the Paris Agreement, which went into effect on November 4th, 2020. The US is now the first and only industrialized country to back out of the agreement. The only one. That being said, a new study predicts that by the end of the year, the US's greenhouse gas emissions will be 9% lower than they were in 2019, resulting in the lowest levels in 3 decades. But this drop in emissions is an odd silver lining from the pandemic, and not because of policy. And it could help Biden's administration get back on track to meeting the 2025 goal. President-elect Joe Biden also wants to opt back into the Paris Agreement as soon as he takes office on January 20, 2021, which means that the US will have a lot of catching up to do and needs to be more aggressive to reduce emissions. Well, that and also regain the trust of allies. Despite the Paris Agreement's aggressive plan to curb climate change, it still received a lot of criticism from scientists and environmentalists. For starters, the 2-degree mark is deemed as arbitrary or even too low. Some suggest we should aim to keep it down to 1.5 degrees if we truly want to avoid catastrophic events. Another aspect of the deal that's criticized is the pressure rich countries are putting on developing countries to leapfrog fossil fuels and move straight to renewable energy without much financial support or framework. Not to mention, the fossil fuels they're now being shunned for using are exactly what made rich countries rich. And to top it all off, these developing countries are the ones who are impacted the most by climate change. But richer countries are doing their part. The agreement requires rich countries, like the US, before we left the agreement, to collectively provide $100 billion a year to help other countries adapt and help fight climate change. Obama, for example, pledged $3 billion to help other countries address climate change. But only $1 billion were delivered before Trump stopped sending payments. As we mentioned in the beginning, the emission goals and financial commitments in the Paris Agreement are not legally binding. It's a bit of an honor system that we're all keeping an eye on. But what happens if countries miss their mark? Well, then it could all lose its steam. The good news is, there's a lot of energy behind advocacy to help fight climate change. So it's up to us and the court of public opinion to hold our governments and leaders accountable. If we don't do that, then we risk average global temperatures rising by 3 degrees Celsius by 2100. And well, that would put us well past catastrophic.
Oke, itu video pertama. Saya minta diputar ke video kedua dari World Economic Forum tentang carbon footprint, supaya kita ada awareness soal ini. Silahkan. Thank you. The third video, it will take also around 4 to 5 minutes. It's a very moving video. It's made by BBC. It's for me, it's a very symbolic video on what we have to do on the global warming, on the carbon footprint, and also what kind of concern we should have from now on to the future. But it is very, very critical. Please start the video. It's an Indonesian situation.
Kuwi njaluk rasa. Lah 2006 wis do toto-toto niki ta, Mbak. Sithik ngantek mapak 2010 wis resik. Karek aku tok 2010 ki siji aku tok iki. Pernamane nggih sawah. Bersawah niku kula ning kene ya maunane kerja tandur terus, Dik. Tandur pari to, Dik, nandur jagung. Lah kok berhubung kok terus rop kok selat maju terus. Akhirnya do tambah. Bar tambah kok terus nemen iki kok dadi lau. Ya Mbak entek rapidah kuwi ngurusi desa iki Tenggelam niki, Mbak. Lah nyatane aku mau pindah to Mbak kandhani entek desane. Kuwi to Mbak wis dadi laut kabeh mapak kono ora ana karangane. Iki carane kan tak tanemi mangrove terus to Mbak, delele brayu-brayu iki ya do mangrove do urip. Pomo ora tak tanduri ya entek to Mbak. Yo entak-entak terus dadi laut kabeh Mbak wis tekan sido gemah kok. Mau digek maning darat kok gelem ngalih ora ya nak derek manggon digaweke ya gelem. Nak ora digaweke wis tetep ning kene aku.
Ya kalau dari data satelit altimetri kita sudah coba kumpulkan lebih dari 20 tahun gitu ya untuk wilayah Indonesia. Sebenarnya sea level rise kenaikan air laut itu tidak signifikan, hanya 6 mili 1 cm per tahun ya. Nah sedangkan turunnya bisa sampai 10 cm, bahkan di beberapa tempat ada yang 20 cm. Nah, sehingga kalau kita proyeksikan dua model itu ya jelas sebenarnya akan tadi sangat-sangat mengkhawatirkan.
Terima kasih. Itu video yang ketiga. Saya masih ada 2 video pendek-pendek lagi supaya kurang lebih nanti 20 menit. Silahkan diputar video yang keempat tentang bagaimana teknologi akan mensupport ekonomi, juga mensupport cleaner environment setelah pandemi ini berakhir. Silahkan. My last video, number 5 video, will be on the speech of the head of IMF, which is very moving on how we respect people who lost their life in this pandemic and moving forward. So please start. Thank you.
We know that this pandemic is, if left on its own devices, is going to deepen inequality. That has happened in prior cases of pandemic. But if we were to concentrate on investing in people, in the social fabric of our societies, in access to opportunities to education to all, in the expansion of social programs, so we take care of the most vulnerable people, then we can have a world that is a better world for all. And I want to conclude with an example from the past. William Beveridge, in the midst of the Second World War, put forward his famous report in 1942, in which he projected how the UK can address what he called the 5 giant evils. And that led to a better country after the war, and actually to the National Health Service that is saving so many lives today in the UK. And my institution was created exactly in this time. So we now have to step up, use all the strength we have. In the case of the IMF, $1 trillion lending capacity and tremendous engagement on the policy side to turn a page, to have that history be about the great reset, not about the great reversal. And I want to say it loud and clear, the best memorial we can build for those who lost their lives to the pandemic is that greener, smarter, fairer world.
Thank you very much for your patience in watching those 5 videos. So I hope that those videos might give you some insights, but also makes you have a stronger concern on the climate issues, on the climate change, and on the global warming, on the carbon footprint, on the greener environment, and so on. So that's all from me. So I consume around 20-25 minutes. Thank you very much. So I give back the stage to Pak Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jonan, for the excellent sharing. Based on your presentations, the world community is now changing as seen how the community sees their demand to business sector to be more environmentally friendly. And now we will invite Bu Moira, a brief introduction about her. Ibu Moira has a background in forestry from Bogor Agricultural University and a PhD in social geography from University of Hawaii at Manoa. Bu Moira's work has focused on issues of governance as developing in social forestry and decentralizations, adaptive collaborative management, social and community-based forestry, and right-based issues. And more recently, issues of social forestry in the context of climate change. Bu Moira is currently a senior associate at Center for International Forestry Research, or C4. So, Bu Moira, time is yours now, please.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Bu Moira, please.
Thank you. So, on the climate and this.
Hi, Bu Moira. It seems that your connection is breaking up. Hello, Bu Moira. Your connection seems breaking up. We cannot hear you.
Oh, I don't know what to do.
Now it's much better, Bu Moira.
Okay, I'll try again.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody denies now anymore. Often like that climate change is nationally. Somebody in good governance, because the main is to forest understand the business, look for in that climate crisis is partly due to bad governance in the forest and land use sectors that itself play a big role in mitigating climate change. Stabilize the climate. They play an integral part for to towards sustainable growth if governed well. Forest have to restore whatever we managed. So are able to help the degradation of natural resources and promote their restoration. We already have a contribution over 1/3 of the total change mitigations that is said to be needed. We need to restore 300 in line gigatons of carbon. So especially important. Because forests are important, and one of the tools mitigating climate change through forests, there are policy approaches and positive incentives for activities relating to reducing deforestation and forest degradation. And the role of conservation, sustainable management of forests, and enhancement of forest carbon stocks in developing countries. But I would to stress that the main point of the deforestation and forest degradation is the and to this where deforestation 2070 and forestry released a lot it's been solved, even near to solve it. So in the progress of it was first of all Council for Climate Change. 14, 15, there was a change. Susilo. And all these extra bureaucratic we wanted to look in transformation that we all do not agree on it. And like I showed before, doesn't adhere to don't care there are more stakeholders, the inclusion of non-governmental and non-elite actors in governing natural are looking for cross-sectoral influence and collaboration over time. So in our mind also, the business as usual is that we are looking at everything that has to be done under governing natural resources is reduced to a technical project that we are looking for efficient and effective only in a limited scope of a project that these projects are and seldom have anything to do with other sector.
Hello everyone, apologize for the technical issues. While the committee will try to resolve the technical issue, especially on the internet connection, we will back very soon. Thank you. Thank you everyone for keeping stay tuned on this event. Now we are going to invite Pak Iman Gunadi to share his knowledge. A brief introduction about him. Pak Iman received a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Institut Teknologi Bandung and Master of Science and PhD both in Economix from Birmingham University, UK. His research interests in banking behavior, financial system stability, market and banking, liquidity, as well as monetary and macroprudential policy. Pak Iman is currently Head of Research Center at Bank Indonesia Institute of Bank Indonesia. Pak Iman, please, without further ado, you can start your presentations.
Okay, thank you, Eri. Do you hear my voice?
Really, Pak Iman, please.
Okay. Distinguished guests, all speakers, Pak Jonan, Pak Leonard, Ibu Moira, and all participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank the committee for inviting me as one of the research persons in this prestigious seminar. It is my honor to present my thought at the front all of you. In this occasion, I'm on behalf of Bank Indonesia Institute also would like to offer our deepest sympathy to Professor Emil Salim for the loss of his wife. A prayer to you and your family, Pak. In slide 2, please. Before I start my presentation, I would like to quote Matthias Wackernagel and his friend. They said that we, human, has overused the Earth's resources above the global carrying capacity since 80s. Therefore, sooner or later, human has to respond the world's finite limits in the form of resource scarcity, especially in the face of population rise, the energy shortage, either with denial, disgustment, confusion, or technical, economic, and structural fix. My presentation will be divided into 3 parts. The first one, why central bank should concern on climate-related risks. This is going to be a background for the central bank to concern about climate change. A second, from Bank Indonesia point of view, what has been done to tackle these issues. And the third, I will share to you about something to ponder. In slide 4, why central banks should concern about climate-related risks. Previous generations have long had concern about sustainability. It can be traced back to Malthus in 18th centuries or William Stanley Jevons in 19th centuries, both of whom had been troubled by resource scarcity. But to answer the question, it is very straightforward that climate change will have an impact on financial stability, real economy, and price stability. There are many researchers has been done studies on this issue. Aglietta and Espan say that climate change is likely to have severe effect on the stability of the financial system. Meanwhile, Panzi argue that the unsustainable environment itself can generate imbalances in the real economy and affect price stability, then consequently have a negative impact on production. Although we are aware about climate change and know the essential impact on the future life, slow progress on climate change is due because of the existence of this incentive for business players or producers, as the cost of production could increase significantly. Climate change strategy implies a shift to low carbon investment to allow firms to adopt technology to lower greenhouse gas emission. Green energy sources are expensive, especially today, and could lead to losses for companies using renewable resources. Two major barriers associated with green energy projects are a lower rate of return compared to the fossil fuel project and a higher risk of investment compared to the fossil fuel projects. New study conducted by Yoshino and Tagizadeh Esari in 2018 found that green financing play a significant role in allocating resources to sustainable investment because of the expensive investment when a producer adopts green technology and green economy sources. Low economic growth occurs when increases in production come at an expense of resources and well-being that is worth more than a commodity is made. From a banking point of view, many banks are not interested in lending to the green energy sector because of the associated risks and due to the Basel capital requirements. Hence, it is important to assess supporting policies to secure the flow of funds and growth in the green sector. In general, difficulty in assessing external financing is the main obstacle for producers, and these financial constraints are exacerbated for the green sector as the private sector is reluctant to invest as it fears the environmental risks. In this context, green financing will play a central role in allocating resources to sustainable investment. Increasing consumption beyond the balance point of marginal utility, which is the level of satisfaction of the population needs and the population wants, and the marginal disutility, which are labor, loss of leisure, depletion of resources, exposure to pollution, and congestion, makes growth become uneconomic. Unfortunately, up till now, most financial policy and business decisions are made without measuring the environmental related disutility. As climate change can also negatively affect the aggregate demand through the increased risk perception of the entrepreneurs due to the high likelihood of the climate change catastrophes that may destroy their assets, and more household saving for climate change related precautionary that leads to the less consumption. This then will translate into the lower economic growth. Davermos et al. 2016 have identified climate-related financial risks. They divided the risk into three categories. First one is the transition risk that have to do with the re-evaluation of carbon-intensive assets as a result of shock related to the transition of a low-carbon economy. Second, the liability risk that relates with the financial institution coverage of assets as the result of climate change losses. And the third, the physical risks that are linked to the economic damage of the climate-related event. Monetary transmission channels are likely to become increasingly exposed to the climate-related risks, both transition and physical risks, through the credit channel and expectation channel, and can affect the value of asset available to the bank to participate in central bank monetary policy operation. In slide 6, along with the increase of the awareness of to the issue of the climate-related risk, Bank Indonesia, as a monetary authority in Indonesia, has conducted several steps related to the issue, which are formulating green policy, leading in green economy research, leading in green economy international collaboration, supporting green MSMEs, promoting environmental aware community behavior as part of the community's culture. In policy, recently, Bank Indonesia has been relaxing the loan-to-value ratio and down payment for green property and vehicle by 5%. This is for the normal condition. Referring to the policy, green property is property that meet the green building criteria according to the national and or international recognized standard or certification. Bank Indonesia also defined that the green vehicle referred to the President Decree number 55 2019 on the accelerating program of the battery electric vehicle. In this case, when a borrower asking for a bank loan, he must obtain an assessment or certificate of his collateral, which is can be property or vehicle. So this document is a mandatory for bank to approve green property loans or green property financing. Along with this policy, since 2019, Bank Indonesia also require all banks to report their performance on green property loans or green property financing. Thus, this regulation gives us more data to analyze deeply and to formulate more effective green policy. In research, in slide 8, Bank Indonesia has studied several topics in the field of green economy and climate-related issues. This year, Bank Indonesia has ongoing research on regarding the central bank policy mix assessment using the SGE approach. Another example is circular economy research that has been done last year. This research finds that the circularity level positively affect the productivity indicators, but different magnitude of effect across sectors. For example, agriculture sector firms implementing circular economy practice saw the highest positive impact on the productivity, while all firms in the SIBS database saw the lowest positive impact of circularity level of productivity. The findings show that there are unique traits of firms that implement circular economy practice, which make them different and more resilient compared to the other general firms. Another research that is also very important and has a significant contribution in Bank Indonesia is the research of pricing and credit rating for green sukuk. This study analyzed the sukuk spot yield curve as a determinant factor for sukuk price using environmental risk premium. In slide 9, another contribution for research in climate change, Bank Indonesia also conduct a research grant. Last year, we had topic on nudging towards green or circular economy and had two winners from Universitas Gadjah Mada and Universitas Erlangga. They studied nudging green preferences, evidence from a laboratory experiment, and the other research is a restaurant and retail business preferences on circular economy applying the pro-circular change model or a PCCM. This research hopefully will be published in Scopus Journal this year. In 2020, Bank Indonesia also start another research grant. The announcement will be on our website this week. The topic is sustainable and inclusive economic development, the role of digitalization in green economy. This topic is one of the three topics that have been agreed by Indonesian Board of Governors. The other topics are about central bank digital currency and the labor market. I would be very happy if many of you could participate on this event. The prize is quite big, to be honest. Slide 10, for international collaboration in green economy issue, Bank Indonesia has joined a network for greening the financial system, or NGFS, since 2019. NGFS was founded in 2017. It is a group of 83 central banks and financial supervisors who promoting green finance, whose objectives are to share experiences, best practices, and implement green finance, as well as formulate recommendations for central banks to play a role in taking climate change in their respective countries. The secretariat of NGFS is Bank de France, and member has kept rising every year. In this NGFS, Bank Indonesia is actively involved in 4 work streams. The first one is for work stream 2. It is macro financial. This work stream is to develop an analysis framework for assessing risk related to the environment or climate and its impact on the macroeconomic and financial system. The second one is workstream 3. It's scaling up green finance. This workstream is to encourage member countries in increasing the share of green finance in their financial system. In this workstream, we discuss the impact of climate change on monetary policy. Another workstream that Bank Indonesia involved is workstream research. This workstream is to conduct regular update and research questions, providing and mobilizing research for NGFS stakeholders, coordinating the implementation of research conducted by other working streams, and voluntarily inviting members to collaborate on various researches. This workstream was formed as a catalyst to harmonize and unite the NGFS Global Research Partner and the NGFS research community involved in NGFS research priorities. The last workstream is bridging data gaps. This workstream is to identify data gaps that is required to improve the quality of assessment related to the risks and opportunity from the climate change. Bank Indonesia also support green MSMEs. So far, there are more than 1,000 MSMEs across Indonesia has been supported by Bank Indonesia. At least 300 of them are categorized as green and zero waste MSMEs. Bank Indonesia, through all branches in 44 cities, has supported MSMEs business needs, including capacity building of the entrepreneurs, piloting project for adopting green technology, and also helping farmers to cooperate and to increase their bargaining power towards large companies. Bank Indonesia also has some program to promote environmental aware community behavior as part of the company's culture. For example, for a couple years, we separate plastic waste as the effort for promoting circular economy. Bank Indonesia encourage its people to use tumbler instead of disposable plastic bottle, and it has introduced less paper printing policies. Before I finish my presentation, I've got something to ponder. To achieve a sustainable growth, we cannot deny the significance of the climate-related risks. As the climate change intensify, its impact on the financial stability, the real economy and price stability will be more increasingly significant, which we must be preparing. Policy and research promoting sustainable growth are vital. Tackling climate change need a collaboration that we can have domestically and internationally. Next, small things matter. And last, we must do our role in tackling the climate change. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much. Back to you, Ari.
Thank you very much, Pak Iman. Indeed, that understanding the climate transition risk in Indonesia is really important, as it will have serious consequences to the financial stability. Now, I'm trying to move to Bu Maira. Bu Maira, are you there? Can you hear us, Bu Maira?
Yes, I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Bu Maira. So now, time is yours, Bu Maira. You can start the presentations, please.
But my internet is still unstable, so perhaps you can do the presentation from your side. Okay.
Yes, we will try to display the presentation side from our side. Yeah. Yeah, please start, Bu Mayra.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So just a little refresher, because we already talked a lot about the fact that there is a climate crisis with global warming, increasing extreme events, disaster losses, and all up. So we are not going to talk too much about this. Next slide, please. I just want to highlight that climate crisis is a global problem. So it does not adhere to geopolitical boundaries, even though several times we already said that in the end, it becomes political, but it shouldn't be, because we have to solve this transnationally and globally. And because in my case, we are also talking about forest and natural resources, we need a better governance to reduce the greenhouse gases needed to mitigate climate change. Next slide, please. So forest and climate change and climate crisis. From out of the 100 so many countries that have submitted their NDC, more than half have included forest as a tool or a focus for mitigating climate change and reducing emissions. And we know that forests help stabilize the climate. They regulate ecosystems, protect biodiversity, play an integral part in the carbon cycle, and also support livelihoods and drive sustainable growth. But to maximize these climate benefits of forests, we must keep more forest landscape intact and manage them more sustainably, and not convert too much more, because like Greenpeace was saying, we already have enough forest that is being converted to other uses. We actually should restore more. When we are by and that includes restoring 350 million hectares globally. Next slide, please. Okay, for R&D, we need change. We need a transformational change. So we need to move from business as usual and move into change. Everyone needs change, but what kind of change and how we achieve that change. So REDD, the reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, is a tool which sort of depends on transformational change, but it's also driving this change. And what kind of change we are looking for is in the next slide, please. So next slide, please. So first, REDD itself, which consists of policy approaches and positive incentives related to reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. And this is highlighted in red because the key is reducing deforestation and forest degradation. Statement of just continue because next slide. Yeah. And more or less consistent. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Can you move to the next slide? I just want to show that one of the requirements of efforts these multi-stakeholder change task force, which was then the agency. These were consisting of multi-stakeholders from many different organizations to really design the strategy of the Minister of Environmental and Minister of Forestry were combined, and task forces were dismissed. The Red Agency, the National Council, and so the Presidential Task Force, and RDD was integrated into the Ministry of Project and Ministry of Environment. So at that stage we were looking at a little bit this for a new approach. So what we mean here is that traditionally in Indonesia, almost all development activities are organized as more or less projects which look at the technical aspects and where efficiency and the finishing of the budget is a main issue. While in the transformational change, we are really looking more at the progress, at processes, at the stakeholder, at the transparency, at the cross-sectoral collaboration, rather than the sectoral individual projects. So that is why in this presentation we have named it Projectification Against New Modes of Governance. Next slide, please. So we followed the development of REDD in 3 phases. We conducted surveys in 2012, 2015, and 2019, and interviewed respondents at organizations that we thought would be influential and involved in policy making on REDD. Next slide, please. So first of all, we look at perception. What do our stakeholders think about REDD? Next slide. Next slide. So we had several statements and we asked people to agree or disagree. But what we found was that most of our stakeholders, most of our respondents had big hopes of REDD. They thought that REDD was an efficient tool for climate change mitigation and would lead to improved governance and also have a need to also include the co-benefits, the conservation, the poverty reduction, and the sustainable management. Two things that were not so clearly there was not such a high agreement was on the fact whether it should be nationally governed or subnationally. Should it be decentralized or all within the national level? And furthermore, the financing was still, people were still unsure about how financing would continue and who was going to pay for it. Next slide, please. So who shapes REDD policy? We had, in the new modes of governance, there's the theory that to gain more efficient and effective management of natural resources, we need the voice of all stakeholders and the collaboration of all stakeholders or all the important stakeholders. In the policy making, we looked at the different stakeholders, and during the 3 phases, we found that while in the 2012, clearly the Ministry of Forestry was the main actor and the most influential. In 2015, there was a transition where Minister of Forestry, people were unsure because of all the changes that were happening, and NGOs and donors then became relatively more important. While in 2019, things settled back in, and clearly REDD was back within the Minister of Forestry, and everybody sort of thought that REDD was directed and steered by the Minister of Environmental and Forestry. Next slide, please. So how did information exchange occur? So these are diagrams of reciprocal information. And in 2012, you can see that the network broke down in separate coalitions, whereby information is transferred only from within the coalition. So NGOs only talk to NGOs, government only talks to government, and the private sector up there only talks to the private sector. In 2015, the information was much more consolidated in network. There was not so much breakup. And even in 2019, it was even more consolidated. Although we think that this is because of more information shared over the internet. So it doesn't really matter that you talk within your group, because over the internet, the cross-sectoral information is shared much more efficiently. Next slide, please. Collaborations, however, still is sort of centered in different groups. You know, in one way, this is natural because, of course, you collaborate with people you can work together with. You collaborate with actors which provide the funding, and you collaborate with actors that can regulate how the cooperation is occurring. But still, this shows that other cross-sector collaboration, it still falls
Thank you very much for keeping stay tuned at these dialogues. Really apologize for the technical problem that's been faced by Bu Moira. Now we are moving on to the Q&A discussion. I would like to read your question that's been read down on the chat box. The first questions be addressed to Pak Leonard. As you mentioned before, renewable energy law that we need should not be hijacked by non-renewable and dirty energy options like nuclear, whereas nuclear energy could produce more than half of nation's emissions. So the question is, should nuclear energy be eliminated at all or just reduce the productions? So time is yours, Pak Leonard.
Thank you, Pak Eri. This, as I mentioned earlier, we have a bill at the moment as initiative of the Parliament national legislative program. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pak.
Okay.
Go on.
For this this year's national legislative program. Unfortunately, rather unusual to other renewable energy bill or law in other parts of the world, this bill also gives very significant space to nuclear options, as well as to what's so-called new energy, which in our view is not actually new. Those are the new forms of fossil fuel energy. Nuclear, of course, as we know, is the last option. In our national energy plan, it is the last resort. It should not be explored when other options are still available. It will take me. I will not speak at length with the potential, detrimental impacts of nuclears. We already know Fukushima. We already know. The geological sensitivities of this archipelago, as well as we already know the governance vulnerabilities of our policy making and decision making. I mean, I would like to revert. In a very small scale, the case in basically manipulation and corruption of nuclear waste in Serpong a couple of years ago, and you cannot imagine if that kind of manipulation actually takes place in the forms of a nuclear power plant. So Indonesia has probably the richest real renewable energy capacity. We should explore that to the maximum first before even think about nuclear option. Thank you.
Point taken that knowing that all of the potential risks from the nuclear energy, we still need to consider to use more of the renewable energy sources that abundant in our country, right? So now the second questions to Pak Jonans. A recent Boston Consulting Group BCG survey of more than 3,000 people across 8 countries has found that in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, people are more concerned about addressing environmental challenges and more committed to changing their own behavior to advance sustainability. The commitment to sustainability is even more pronounced among younger people. In your opinions, will the COVID-19 pandemics be a game changer to push policymakers in developing more sustainable policy in the future? Please, Pak Jonan.
Thank you for it's a very good question, but I don't know whether it is addressed in the scale of a global or in the scale of Indonesia. So, but in my opinion, most of the policymakers as well as the international organizations actors are now trying to focus on how to anticipate the next pandemic if it might happen in the near future. That is one. Second, in terms of the game changer, I personally believe that this pandemic is a game changer. Since also the previous big pandemic, the Spanish flu that happened 100 years ago, also a game changer to end the First World War or World War I. And I think many policymakers as well as well, including I think in most countries, I think are now considering how to have how to avoid the next pandemic to happen because of the imbalance of the ecosystem, imbalance of the environment, and so on. So that's if you want to say it's a game changer, so it is a game changer. So that's why the head of IMF, as well as I think many UN senior officials, are now proposing to have the so-called the global reset, to have life that is more equal, more healthier, more environmentally friendly, as an effort to avoid the next pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jonans. And the next question is to Pak Iman. In the Low Carbon Development Initiative published in 2019, Indonesian government put the long-term economic development path. Since that point, the government has moved forward to design a whole host of implementing policy, including consideration of how to scale up green finance. And also, last 3 years, we have seen a growing consensus among the world central bankers and financial regulators that climate-related financial risk is material risk to financial stability. In your opinions, which part of the economic sectors will be the most affected by the climate crisis, and what policy and financial options to protect the financially weaker parties from climate transition risks? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's the good question. To me, some sector has been affected by the climate risk, especially for the farming, for the what you call it, something with with the nature, fishing or gardening, everything. We have several research on that sector. The policy to increase the financing or the loan to that sector is not only the responsible for Bank Indonesia, but also for the OJK or financial authority in this country. Why? Because some of the policy, especially for the risk-weighted asset, and how to give an incentive directly to the bank to finance the loan, or it should come from the OJK. But for Bank Indonesia, although it's a limited action or limited policy, but we try to start with what I have mentioned earlier, is a loan to value ratio. That's in normal case, because in the case of the pandemic like today, loan to value ratio is especially for the vehicle and then for the green house is postponed, because we have to boost the credit for whole, not only for the green. But in the normal condition, we have incentive for those who asking for loans, especially for the greenhouse and the vehicle, that support green economy. For the government, I think many issues that has been should be addressed by the government. I think it's not my capacity here to speak on behalf of the government. But what I concern is Bank Indonesia also give some advice to other institutions, including the government. What should we do to address or to tackle the climate-related risk, especially to boost the economy? Because we have to collaborate in every institution. So the impact of the policy will be more larger than for a single institution itself. So I think my suggestion here is we have to encourage all the institutions to work together, especially for the policymaker, to increase the awareness and then to produce the policy that support the green economy. I think that's my opinion.
Actually, we receive a lot of questions in our chat box, but unfortunately, due to the time limitations, we have to stop these sessions. And again, thank you so much for all of the honorable speakers for sharing your knowledge and experience in climate-related issues. And unfortunately, we also sorry to Bu Moira for some technical problem that happened today. But for participant, you can download the material from Bu Moira in our website. Please browse and download it from the website. And thank you so much for all of the participants. And now I return to Kanka and Irza. Thank you.
This marks the end of the moderated session. Before leaving the stage, we would like to give a token of appreciation to our speakers and moderator.
Therefore, we kindly invite Kevin Bagasatria as the Chief Executive Officer of the 18th Economix to give the certificates to our first speaker, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak.
Dear Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, from you, we have understood that the climate crisis needs strong and decisive responses, and therefore, I would like to thank you for your presentation. It was very insightful. Please receive our token of appreciation, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Kevin.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak. On to our next speaker, Mr. Ignatius Jonan.
Dear Mr. Ignatius Jonan, it was truly our honor to have you here in our webinar. You mentioned on how the markets actually correlated with the climate crisis, and therefore I would like to, on behalf of the committee, I would like to say thank you for you, and please receive our token of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Ignatius Jonan.
We would like to express our gratitude once more to Mr. Ignatius Jonan.
Moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Moira Mulyono.
Dear Dr. Moira Mulyono, we are truly sorry for any internet issues that you have faced and that you couldn't deliver your presentations properly, but here's a token of appreciation for you. Thank you, Dr. Moira.
Again, thank you, Dr. Moira Mulyono.
Proceeding to our next speaker, Dr. Iman Gunadi.
Dear Pak Iman Gunadi, thank you very much. You explained a lot on how actually central bank cares about the climate crisis and how the climate crisis will affect things like price stability and others, something that is very unique and something that most students don't get in the class before. And for that, I would like to thank you, and please receive our token of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Iman.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin.
Again, we give our thanks to Dr. Iman Gunadi.
And finally, our remarkable moderator, Mr. Eri Wijaya.
Dear Mr. Eri Wijaya, thank you very much for moderating our moderate session. Your experience was truly helpful for our seminar, and therefore, I would like to thank you, and please receive our token of appreciation, Mr. Eri.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it's my pleasure to moderate this session.
Lastly, we would like to express our most sincere appreciation to our exceptional moderator and speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finally reached the end of today's event. We are very pleased to guide you through the opening ceremony and today's inspiring seminar sessions.
We really hope that today's seminar will give you beneficial knowledge resulting in new ideas to overcome the economic challenges.
Thank you for the audience, especially our distinct guests, speakers, and participants of the 18th Economix. Before we end this seminar, we would like to thank our sponsors and media partners. Without their contribution, our event would not be as successful. In particular, we would like to thank our sponsors.
Bridgestone Tire Indonesia,
Fiesta Nugget, rasakan enaknya setiap hari.
File Indonesia,
Lingo Talk,
Bank Syariah Indonesia,
Fitbear,
Ajaib,
Iluni FEBUI,
Wiji,
Studio Rahel,
Databox,
Treats by Walking Drums,
Hungry,
BNI Sekuritas,
and Epson. Our official research partner, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia,
and Lembaga Pendidikan Ekonomi dan Masyarakat FEBUI. Last but not least, we would also like to thank our official media partner, Trans7, and our other media partners,
Trans TV,
CNN,
Net TV,
Metro TV,
Medcom.id,
Detik.com,
Tempo,
Kumparan,
O Channel,
Merdeka.com,
Liputan 6,
Stabilitas,
Kata Data,
Good News from Indonesia,
Media Indonesia,
Infobank,
Greeners,
Info Seminar,
Bumi Buddies,
Greeneration Foundation,
Teens Go Green,
Forest is Our Friend,
Natural News,
Kontan,
Saya Pilih Bumi,
Cerita Iklim,
Sustainable Indonesia,
Event Banget,
BO Economica,
and last but not least, Earth Hero ID.
And last but not least, we are reminding you that we have three donation going on, which we invite you to contribute to our donation by accessing lindungihutan.com/economicsfebui or by scanning the QR code that is shown throughout our seminar.
Thank you everyone for your attendance in this year's 18th Economics Seminar, supported by Bridgestone Tire Indonesia.
We would like to bid farewell.
I'm Muhammad Irza Syahyandra.
And I'm Kianka Azura.
Espirit!
Indonesia, negeri yang menyimpan segala keindahan. My Trip, My Adventure kini hadir setiap minggu jam 8 pagi di Trans TV. Sambut kehadiran Deddy Corbuzier.
Enggak.
Iya, mau.
Suka.
Saya Deddy Corbuzier, yoga.
Deddy's Corner kini hadir setiap Sabtu jam 7 malam di Trans TV.
Bagaimana cara permainan ini? Yang gak ada duanya.
Yuk, main yuk.
Yang mulai pertama adalah tim kalian aja. Yang selalu ditunggu tiap malam.
Yoi dong.
Yang asiknya nggak habis-habis. Wah, keren ya. Cuma ada di sini. Jangan kemana-mana, tetap di Tonight Show. Tonight Show, Senin sampai Rabu, jam 9:30 malam, hanya di NET.
In 2008, an international research organization was founded that would seek to have a positive influence on relationships and policymaking within and between the countries of ASEAN and East Asia. This is AREA, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia.
When AREA was first mooted, the thinking was we need a very substantial
economic research body.
It's very important for an organization like ASEAN to have the backing academically for what it wants to do. And that's why ERIA fills in the gap and helps provide the research.
It's more about providing the information that's needed for the negotiators or for the political decision makers.
We are not a pure academic institution. We must do the more practical policy recommendation.
And ERIA's role, of course, is also to promote the talking through of sensible policy developments, and it plays a fundamentally important role in that respect.
And ERIA is now accepted as one of the major research institutes in East Asia as a whole.
After its first decade of input into the development of ASEAN, ERIA must now be ready to meet the challenges of the future.
We believe that issues like sustainable development, like environment, issues like education, humanitarian aspect of it, which we think ERIA has the capacity to develop expertise and provide policy recommendation to ASEAN.
ERIA, hopefully in the not too distant future, will become like the OECD of our region.
ERIA will continue to contribute to the community building of ASEAN and East Asia.
Bridgestone is on a journey toward a more sustainable society. Together with our suppliers and partners, we are determined to pioneer new innovations that deliver value to our customers and the world, improving the way people move, live, work, and play. The global demand for rubber is rising, and we must rise to meet that challenge responsibly. As a global leader providing sustainable mobility and advanced solutions, Bridgestone is working toward 100% sustainable materials at every point of our supply chain by 2050 and beyond. This journey will not be easy, but it will be acted on with the utmost consideration for how we procure our materials, the natural resources we use, and the impact our productivity has on the communities of the people we buy and source from. Our founder, Shojiro Ishibashi, believed in serving society with superior quality. This belief is not only about the products we make, but the legacy we leave behind. It is our way to serve, shaping our continued global compliance, instilling in us a commitment to environmental stewardship, motivating our respect for human rights and fair labor, and emboldening our commitment to increase transparency and engagement with partners. Inspired by our founder's vision, our way to serve will allow us to see long-term environmental, social, and economic value for all our stakeholders at every touch point of our interaction with the world around us. Through our way to serve and its layers of impact, enhancing mobility, supporting people and communities, and advancing environmental stewardship, we will set an example for our industry, lead in sustainable mobility, and provide lasting value to how we conduct our lives today, tomorrow, and into the future. Bridgestone and its partners are on a journey.
Bisa nikmatin berbagai informasi dari Liputan 6,
liputan6.com, dan aplikasi Liputan 6 secara bersamaan. Semuanya ada di wajah baru aplikasi Liputan 6. Kamu bisa jadi orang yang paling cepat dapat informasi terbaru karena ada fitur latest. Nikmati cara baru baca berita di fitur Visual Stories. Bukan cuma tulisannya yang menarik, tapi banyak gambar kece yang bisa kamu lihat. Tampilan kece, update berita cepat. Download sekarang ya.
Saat ini obat ampuh untuk melawan virus corona belum ada.
Saya ingin agar protokol kesehatan, perubahan perilaku di masyarakat menjadi perhatian kita. Kita fokus kampanye pakai masker.
Semua wajib pakai masker di media group. Disiplin memakai masker tidak hanya untuk melindungi diri dan sesama, tapi juga untuk menjaga Indonesia kita.